Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, your destination to hear stories of how businesses grow and scale. I'm Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media and the host of this podcast. Now, let's jump right into this week's interview. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today our guest is Mike Ward, CEO of AnthemIQ. And AnthemIQ, their commercial real estate transaction technology creates a seamless client experience that allows a broker to win more business, increasing transaction volume by up to 80%. So Mike, tell us a little bit about the history of the business. How did you come up with that 80% number? And thanks for being with us today.
No, thank you for having me. We're excited to be invited out here today. So look, the history of the business was our co-founders, Chris and Kenny, had come together to create a business called Elevate Growth Partners, which was a brokerage, commercial real estate brokerage business here in Austin, Texas. And Kenny had been a customer of Chris's in the past, Chris being in the brokerage industry for about almost 20 years. I was a customer of Chris's in the past. And the idea that we would go looking for office space with Chris, and there would be a lot of attachments. There'd be a lot of PDFs, a lot of Excel sheets. You'd go up and do a tour with them, and there'd be these nice printed tour books that were filled with a lot of time and effort from marketing and research analysts and people that would put it together so that you get the best set of images and insights and tours that you could have to obviously narrow your search from all the different options that are in the market to then get an office space. Those of us that have been in the tech industries, like Kenny and myself, would used to rib Chris quite a bit and say, this can't be the way that commercial real estate engages with a customer. There's got to be technology. There's got to be platforms that are out there. Every other industry has it. Even residential real estate, Zillow and Redfin would already had platforms out there, and people were being able to do these digital searches and manage it in a much cleverer and simpler way and a better user experience. So Chris and Kenny came together and said, yes, let's do that. Let's build our brokerage to be tech enabled, and let's put our brokers with this technology to go out and win more business, be more efficient, and ultimately give the customer a better experience. And so it was a number of years ago now that business was created, and that's where this technology is a proprietary technology that we built in-house by our product team, our engineers. And over the last about 12 months, as we started to take that to market, a lot of people in the industry came to us and said, we want to license that. We want that tool. We want to go out and, again, change this customer experience that has just been done for decades with these documents and multiple attachments and so on. And so we spun the company out, now called AnthemIQ, and it's a sole company for providing software to brokers in the industry.
Why do you think commercial real estate? I mean, so are we saying here that commercial real estate is just less technology enabled, and you saw an opportunity here to kind of like innovate on this?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's surprising to find industries that are less technology enabled, as you put it, right? I mean, most of them, someone has come in, someone has disrupted, someone has made alternatives to the way that it has been done. And so we were lucky to happen to be in the industry with the brokerage business with Chris for a number of years before coming up with this idea. And it was just the fact that it hasn't been done. And a lot of people have maybe dabbled in monoline features or different stakeholders within the industry. You've got other competitors out there that are doing something at a smaller scale, but from an end-to-end, an ability to take a client from search to sign lease, no one had been doing it. And so it was kind of the right place, right time opportunity for us.
And so what was was there a key moment that you can recall that you're like, all right, we have to build this tech? It makes a lot of sense. Or was it just like an incremental move towards making your business just a little bit easier to use, and then all of a sudden it snowballs into this really big technology? Tell us about that process, because I've dabbled in building tech. Like when I say dabbled, I mean I was put in a role where I had to build tech, and I didn't build it, I project managed it. It was the most difficult thing I've ever did. Sorry, it's just so hard. Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for people who can build tech.
Well, and you're spot on. We have a great team, and I should say that we have product experts that understand user experience, understand the industry, have spent a lot of time with brokers. And so we say we're built by brokers for brokers, and the fact that we really grasp what the need is, and then a talented engineer team to take what their designs are and then ultimately put it into the features and the dashboards that you would see today. It was in early 19 where, again, the constant feedback to Chris, who's running these searches for clients to put them into office space, as well as Chris himself going, I've got to do it differently. I know how to do 50 transactions a year, but I can't figure out how to do 51. And so there's an administrative activity that it's very heavy. It's very time consuming to put together all these documents and decks. And by the way, then they call me and go, what's the square footage again? Or how many parking spots did it come with? And then the other CFO of the company may call and go, what are these numbers attached to that property again? And so there's a bunch of isolation and a bunch of kind of archaic ways of and broken communication methods of managing this. And he just goes, I got to be able to do it better. And so the technology was built to solve our brokers, Chris as the example, of being able to be smarter with their time, be an ability to manage more, but then ultimately give the customer an experience that they're seeing in every other product or service that they may handle out there. And so they need to be able to use technology as it pertains to finding an office space or finding an industrial or land or whatever it may be.
So you built this in 2019, or it was already created by 2019?
Yeah, we started it in 2019. We started using it in the mid part of 2020. So actually COVID allowed us to pull forward the need of this, because the lack of travel or the lack of being able to get together and actually go into spaces, this platform actually was, again, just unique and great timing for us to be able to walk someone through an office with internal photos that they haven't seen before, with virtual tour videos, with kind of everything in a dashboard. And so we actually solved a lot of what COVID created for us in the space. So started in 19, was in the market the summer last year in 2020.
So tell us about adoption. How do you get adoption for the software, for the technology?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've taken the approach that the tenant rep broker, which is the middle stakeholder in a transaction, right? You have the tenant rep broker, you have the customer, and then you have the leasing agent, the person that represents the building, the space, the land, whatever it may be. And so our focus is tenant rep broker, providing them the tool to manage the transaction through. And so we take that to boutique brokerages, to large brokerages, to single brokers that just want to come and sign up and use it, whether they're part of a larger firm or a siloed business themselves. And so we sign them up and we bring them on. That is our customer. When we bring them on, what excites the leasing agent, which is another stakeholder, is saying, well, with those brokers on and using this to show our spaces to the customers, we then get the leasing agent to sign up with us. And for the leasing agent, it doesn't cost a thing. It's load up the data, the information that you want to present, the internal photos that you've spent time and money on to show this building, this space, whatever it may be. And why they are so excited to come and use it with us is because they know it's going directly into the hands and the eyes of a customer. It's not just going into a database that may be used by tenant reps, but this is actually going right through to the customer, and they're being able to make the decisions right off of the information uploaded. So our adoption is tenant rep first. And we took it to market mid-February, and we already have a ton of users in all three of those stakeholders that I'm talking about.
And how do you market this product? How do you get the word out? Is it network referrals? Is it reaching out to key stakeholders? Like, we're really interested in how companies grow in scale, and you have a relatively small network of individuals who work in this business, right? In the grand scheme of things, right? You're not selling chocolate bars at every CVS in the country. How do you pinpoint where people are, and how do you gain their attention?
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. It is, from my experiences, coming from different technology industries, it's a very narrow market size opportunity, which is perfect in the fact that we know how many brokers are in the United States or Canada, some of the markets that we're in today, and we know exactly the firms that they're working at. So your ability to go target that is greater than any experience that I've ever had. We have a dual track sales process, which is supported and partnered with our marketing program as well. And so what I mean by that is this opportunity to sell the software is not just from the top down, is not just from the leadership, the ownership of a firm to say, yes, I'm going to take that software and I'm going to integrate it throughout the whole company. Yes, we work on those, but that is one of two avenues. We also work with brokers because brokers in a lot of cases are 1099. They are purchasing their own, different events that they may be spending money on, maybe some of the tools that they're using, how they entertain clients and so on is out of their own pocket. And so when you bring software like this, if the company hasn't purchased it for them, they have the right and the opportunity, and a lot of them have the desire to go out and invest in it themselves. And for us, we have that opportunity to go kind of from the ground up as well from a sales perspective. So that's unique. What we've done, we started in Texas in February, and we started with some firms up in Dallas and Austin and Houston. What allowed that to happen is you start to get them working with co-brokers in other markets. You start to have those firms have offices in other markets. And with our outgoing activities, as well as just kind of the word of mouth, which happens a lot in this industry, is you start to have then the inbound activity. That's where Canada came on. Canada, someone out of Toronto, out of a major firm, called us and said, I've seen it, I want it, let's go, can you be up here? And we're like, I hadn't thought about Canada yet. Even though that's where I'm from, I was excited to go, yes, we can turn that on and let's get going. So there's a sales activity there that is focused, right? We have a roadmap for that, but is responsive to the people that then are coming inbound. And so we quickly adjust, right? We've got these cities, we're in these markets, we're penetrating these areas, but we're getting a lot of insight from, or a lot of people coming to us from Toronto or Chicago, wherever it may be, and then you start to narrow that focus into those markets. Our marketing supports exactly that. We have a roadmap in marketing. We have from PR to the content that we push out, the blogs and the, we paid search, whatever it may be, social sites that we use that go and try to create the awareness, right? That's the biggest thing. This industry being as small as it is, they haven't seen technology like this solve the solution as big as it's solving. So you got to create the awareness of there is a tool out there, and it's AnthemIQ that has it.
And I imagine, there was a big shift in the advertising business in 2010, 2011. And some people were gung-ho about it, and then other people were just ducking their head in the sand. And a lot of the people who were ducking their head in the sand no longer work in advertising.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a certain contingent of people in your business who just don't want anything to do with this. Do you foresee a shift just because of their nature, right? Like this could save them time, this saves them money. It fundamentally changes the value proposition of how you allocate your precious hours during the day. It allows people to make more money, and people are going to duck their head in their sand on this. That's usually what happens with big revolutionary tech. So the question really is, what does the future of commercial real estate look like over the next 2 to 5 years? I mean, I imagine that there are some big challenges with the fact that I'm sure many people, many companies aren't interested in renting office space anymore. I'm proud to say that our company never had office space from the start. Primarily because LA has ridiculous traffic, and I just didn't want to sit in traffic. If it's my business, I'm going to sit at home. So the point is, what are the larger industry trends in commercial real estate that you see over the next 2 to 5 years, and how does AnthemIQ play into all that?
Yeah. All right. Let's look at that in two ways. Let's look at, as you just talked about there, the office space and, pre-COVID, during COVID, a lot of the thoughts, comments, and plans that maybe people were thinking of, and then a post-COVID. But what we're seeing in the markets that we're in with the technology, as well as the markets that we live in here in Austin, is that maybe the early stage of COVID, people are like, I'm not going back to the office, right? And a lot of companies made certain positions to do that. Some have stayed there, but a lot are going back to I think we're going to go into maybe a flexible workspace.
Yeah.
And so maybe the need that they had before was X size, and now they may take a little less. Maybe we take the same amount of size, but distance. Instead of cramming 100 people into that office, we're only going to put 80 desks in that office, and we're going to have the hot desk program that's going on. So we see a lot more companies making those decisions or publicly announcing. Right? You've got Jamie Dimon that says our bank is going back to the office.
Yeah.
We've got Google that announced $7 billion into commercial real estate to support their operation. So big businesses to medium to small businesses are going, maybe what the thought was of less office is actually we're seeing in the transaction supported a lot of office space being taken up. It's just maybe more creative or more flexible of when and where that office space is being used by the employees. So we see that, and we think that's still the future. Right? We think there may be hot big markets like a San Francisco, like New York, some of these markets that had a lot of companies moving out of it for many reasons, but maybe one of it was due to the cost of office space. I think that's going to start to level out a bit. There's markets like Austin, like Nashville, like other really hot markets that those markets are going up quite a bit in fees. Still, we're nowhere near where San Francisco or New York are, but there's just a lot of businesses that want to be into these hot markets right now. So we're very excited and feel like there's a great future for commercial real estate and office space. Industrial is as hot as can be, right? With e-commerce, with the need of having logistics and goods in local markets for same day delivery, next day delivery, right? So there's that activity as well from an industrial, retail, restaurants, hotels. It's still going, and it's still very hot. So we're very pro on what that looks like. From a technology perspective, we think everyone's trying to figure out what's next and how to differentiate themselves, right? A broker today can say, hey, look, we've got better data as a company. We've got better access to maybe this golf course to entertain you on. We've got a better network, and so we can help you connect into the city, especially if you're coming in new to that location. And so your ability and opportunity to differentiate is becoming more challenging. So I think it comes down to then technology. And you're right. There's going to be people that maybe are at the later stage of their career, have been doing it for 25 years and go, I've got 3 years left. I'm not changing a thing.
Right.
Right. And we've had those.
It's too hard.
Right.
It's just too hard. It's sometimes I just don't want to learn something new.
I just don't. And it's funny. There was one, I've come from fintech. So in the payment space, and, I had a conversation with one of these individuals that was in that later stage and go, I don't get it. And I don't think so. And I said, can I walk you through maybe the banking industry and how that's changed and how I assume you've adopted it? And he started to say, well, I don't think so, but I'll play along. I said, great. Let me walk you through. You have a smartphone? He goes, yeah, he had an iPhone, held it up. And I said, I assume back in the day you used to walk in to a teller to, double check your balances and do any transactions that you needed to do. And you always had cash on hand and so on. I said, do you have Venmo on your account? He goes, yeah, that's how I send money to my daughter. I said, you use technology today versus what you probably used to do is to go get the cash out and figure out a way to mail it over to them and, and get it in their hands. I said, simple example, but you adopted technology. He eventually goes, so what you're saying is if I don't adopt it, I'm going to be left behind.
Yeah.
And I think eventually where we're going to get to is those that want to kind of do it their way. I'm sure if they're at their end of their career for the next few years, may not impact them that much, but those that are slow to adopt technology to differentiate their ability to do more, as well as ultimately it's the customer that's saying they want it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to deal with it any other way. And so those that accept it will stand out. I think it will be a FOMO and everyone else will start to follow.
Well, and it's just a competitive advantage. I mean, if you can run faster, do more with your hours day to day, I mean, you're just going to be overall more productive, or you're going to be the guy on the beach who's getting the same amount of work done with like less overall effort. I mean, that's the fundamental benefit of technology. I remember working my very first job while I was still in college. I mean, it was not my first job, but my first career advertising marketing job. I was working at Universal Music doing social media stuff before it was called social media. It was like just posting in forums. It was called guerrilla marketing or whatever.
Yeah.
And we were in the midst of the transition from, basically they got cut down with free music like Kazaa and Morpheus and all those free download sites. They haven't transitioned to Apple iTunes didn't exist yet. And you had these really, it was really scary. You had these really senior executives, people who had been in the business for 10 or 20, 25 years. They literally couldn't find jobs. Not because they were expensive, because the jobs weren't there, because everyone, like the industry had contracted so much. And it was, now it's balanced out. Now you have Pandora and Spotify and the iTunes store and all that stuff. But that's another example of an industry that was slow to adopt, and the top of the business, the seniority just kept getting lower and lower and lower until the most senior people had been in the business for just a few years, not in all cases, but in many cases. I have a friend, a really esteemed colleague, who was like, I'm going to be the exception to the rule because he's really charismatic and had a great, just understood the business really well. And he was like, I'm going to be the exception. And he got cut down too after 7 years. He just couldn't make it in the business because the business wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part. That's the scary part about, you make a difference in the business and then it changes on you and you don't know where to go. What does, you just got $10 million in Series A funding. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about that process. I don't know what happens during Series A funding. I've never been part of that world. So tell me a little bit about how your experience was and what happened.
Yeah, no, it's been a definitely exciting and busy time to figure out how to complete that and then get that to where we are today. We did a seed round in 2020 with friends and family of the group, and that actually was going to take us through quite a few milestones. And we weren't thinking of a Series A at this time. What had happened is we started to demo the product into the markets, like I said, Dallas and other areas, and we got a lot of feedback from many people going, this is exactly what I need. How fast can you have maybe this new feature? How fast could you be, into these other markets? And for us, it was ultimately a speed game. If you're first to market with a platform like this, you want to get as much market share as possible. We also had to reach out from the Staubach family, and the Staubach family, from a history in the industry, Roger Staubach, the quarterback from the Dallas Cowboys, back in the day, had left football and was one of the first people that actually created the tenant rep role within a commercial real estate transaction. And so before, it used to be a customer going kind of directly to leasing agent or landlord. And so he built a business that he ultimately sold to JLL and then became the executive chairman for JLL and just retired from that a few years ago. But him and his son, Jeff, and Jeff had been quite successful at JLL as well. As we demoed it for them, Jeff came back to us and said, we want to be a part of this. And for anyone in any industry to have credibility with someone that has kind of created and had such a reputation within that market is always someone you want to be involved with. And so he said, hey, can we lead this round? Can we actually kick the Series A off a lot sooner, and let's go out and let's grab a lot more market share. Let's move a lot of these features forward that you guys had on your roadmap and ultimately grow this business much faster. And so for us, it was an easy, yes, let's go. And it was the Staubach capital that came in that led the round with us, and the remaining was, again, friends and family. So there's pros and a lot to ability to reach out and pick up the phone to our networks to make those calls. It puts a lot of pressure on you because it's your friends and family, right? And so now for us, the Series A has been a lot of work to get it done, but now it's done. The money's in the bank. Now it's go time.
And what are you looking to accomplish with this with this funding?
Yeah, the thought of all the product enhancements and features that we want to continue to roll out, pulling them forward quite a bit. This is not a solution that we go, here it is, market, enjoy it. This is an ability, especially as we're going across search to sign lease And not that we're trying to create all software features for the whole business to be in our solution. We're not going to be their accounting system, but we are going to be their commission tracking system. We're not going to replace certain elements that they need to conduct, maybe the back end, but kind of all front end staff can work off of our platform for basically their whole business. And so a lot of those features are there today. A lot of them are to come, and that's to pull that forward, as well as to continue to hire talent and build out our incredible team that we have today. And so that we can continue to penetrate markets and marketing and the different activities that come alongside getting the awareness and ultimately this into the broker's hands.
And fast forward to the year 2030, what does the state of your business look like, and what is your role in it?
Oh my goodness, yeah. It's hard to think about.
No pressure.
No pressure there. Look, I would say, we have majority of the market, if not all the market, into our platform, utilizing managing transactions to CRM functionality to commission tracking to simplifying their world that ultimately simplifies the management, the finance teams, and all of their departments. I think we're in multiple markets around the globe. We're already, like I mentioned earlier, up in Canada, so that kind of got sprung upon us, but our ability to be in all the other markets utilizing this tool in commercial real estate. I think we probably have some great partnerships with a lot of big businesses, whether that's on the leasing agent, landlord, asset management side, as well as on probably the tenant rep. And, for us, I think we're running a very successful company that is profitable, sustainable, growing rapidly and continuing
leading
to figure
the industry.
out how to change the industry for the next milestones,
Right.
to make them better. But I signed up to do this. My commitment to my wife and girls, my daughters at home was, Dad's got to go all in. I got to go all in on this. And so 2030, we're still cranking. We're ready to go. We're a young team. We're ready to be here for the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, it seems evident that the next decade. Do you agree that the world has shifted or accelerated a shift over as a result of the pandemic? Like a lot of people that I'm listening to believe that, have evidence that the world trends that would have taken 5, 10, 15 years have accelerated over the last year and a half. I mean, do you think that's happening in the commercial real estate business?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book out there called The Disruptor, and it has this, the first chapter talks about if you take a checkerboard, right, and it has 64 different squares, and you put a piece of rice in the first square and you double it every square, and you go from square one to square two rice, over to the third square, there's then 4 grains of rice, and so on and so on. That first half of that checkerboard, each square doesn't seem that impactful. But where we are today in the world with technology and just all the things that have gone on, we're in the second half of the checkerboard. To go from one square to the next, is grains of rice that could cover a country, is grains of rice that start to cover the world. And then I think on the 64 square, it's something like it could cover the world in 7 times, with the amount of rice on that square. So to your point and to that example, is we are making step changes in 5 years or 10 years that would have taken 50 or 100 years in the past. And so COVID pulls things a lot forward in many industries, in a lot of ways that people conduct life, how they do business, how products and services are used. And I think we're going to continue to see probably every 5 years quite a shock to look back and go, well, we used to do it this way, and now we're doing it that way. I think about my daughters who are 8 and 6. At 16, they go, I can't wait to drive a car. I go, will you be? Will you ever drive a car? You'll be in a car, but that type of example, 10, 15 years ago, we would have been laughing to go, what? You're not driving a car? And so for sure, it's COVID or things like that pull these things forward.
And then the implications there of what are people doing with that 30 to 60 minutes they have in their day. And from the advertising perspective, it's like, now I have more screen time opportunity. Now car manufacturers have a network of people who have their attention in the car. And so now you see an opportunity where car manufacturers can lease access to their network, just like a television network does, or a social media giant like Facebook and Twitter does. I mean, it actually changes the landscape in a really dramatic way. I had someone come up to me and say, this was a couple years ago, and say, I'm thinking of investing in buying a billboard out here in Los Angeles, $500,000 just for the land and the pole and all that stuff. And his question was like, what happens if people are in self-driving cars and they're not looking outside of the window anymore? They're staring down at their phone. Like it's a fundamental shift. Here's my question for you. As we wrap up in the next few minutes, one of the key things that I've been paying attention to over the last year and a half is WeWork and Regus and all these other places, but WeWork as the dominant player there. A lot of people were very pessimistic on the outlook for WeWork because of their leadership and the fundamental challenges they had. And they tried to go public and all these things. But now, in a world where you have the desire, the need, the demand for shared office spaces, all of a sudden WeWork looks very rosy again as an outlook. What have you thought about that? Like, what do you think about WeWork as a solution for the way companies put their people in an office setting?
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because companies that are looking for office space don't just need to be small startup or smaller businesses to need those type of shared. There's a lot of large corporations that have gone into the WeWork or such competitors to get, floors of buildings in certain markets. And the fact that it's more turnkey, and the fact that, all the things that it brings versus trying to go get your own space. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a trend and an option out there that will continue to scale, with where we see the market going. I think it's spot on. I think, for us, ultimately, time back to Anthem is, what are the different options that you can put in front of a customer? And sometimes that is one of those options, right? It's in your dashboard. Can you show me 15 spaces that I can take myself and have long-term leases? Can I look at subleases? Then can I look at some of these spaces again that could be in month to month or some type of lease term, depending on how much space you take. And so, ultimately we need to figure out how to get the different options into the customer's hands, because all of them are going to be what they want to consider and what they want to, understand what's in that market for them to go forward.
Awesome. Well, my screen has stopped showing. So let me focus on you for a moment here. That's a shame. All right.
Oh, there we go.
I don't know what's going on. Give me just a moment here. Let me switch my camera up. I don't know.
You froze like you're mad at me too.
Yeah, I know. That's my face.
Like,
I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. All right. As we end up here, let me share our screen again. Mike Ward, CEO, AnthemIQ. Your website is AnthemIQ.com.
Yeah.
Anything, if people want to reach out to you, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, we have a get started button right on there. We have emails for myself on there if people want to reach out directly. But get started. Come take a look at what we have built. Let us demo that for you. Let us show how it's going to improve your ability to be more successful in how you do business, but ultimately put a solution in front of the customers that they want.
Awesome. Mike Ward, CEO, AnthemIQ. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Robert. Have a good day.